There were a couple interesting things that came out this weekend that don't quite fit the corporate press narrative, and I think it's important to show. So first off, Hamas, and these are the terrorists, basically, that run the Gaza Strip, okay? They run this tiny little piece of land that's just a sliver of the entirety of Israel, basically, that is, and I talk about this all the time, that Israel's basically the size of New Jersey. This is just a tiny little strip that before 1967 was part of Egypt. It was never part of a place known as Palestine that had a prime minister or a president or anything of that nature. Well, they had a victory parade this weekend, and I thought we'd show you this victory parade because you're not going to see this on mainstream media, but it's quite curious because I thought Israel was bombing children and there was a genocide and ethnic cleansing and all that stuff. It seemed odd that you would run a victory parade, but here it is. You may want to lower your volume a little bit.
جئناك اليوم بآيات بالوعد الآخر في الكتب فالأمة نار مسعرة وكيان يهود من خشب
جئناك اليوم بآيات بالوعد الآخر في الكتب فالأمة نار مسعرة وكيان يهود من خشب يا سيف القدس من الشهوب أشعلها نارا من لهب.
I would imagine they were singing about peace and coexistence and that sort of thing. If you don't think that that's odd, if they were, ethnically cleansed and all of the horrible things that everyone said Israel was doing a week ago, and now they're having victory parades, also really reminds me of Auschwitz, doesn't it? That's the other thing they always say. It's like the concentration camps. Yeah. You ever see pictures from the concentration camps? Pretty sure they weren't driving around with missiles and everybody looked sort of fat and healthy and all the rest of it. But then, if you don't think that's odd enough, that doesn't sort of fit the narrative, this video came out. This is Gaza's packed beaches this weekend. Well, there seems to be a narrative buster for you, right? Genocide, open-air prison, it's like Auschwitz. They're just enjoying the day on the beach, which shows you that what's happening on the ground is very different than what you're seeing in the news. And the reason I showed you all this was because then this weekend in Brooklyn, these Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters, protesters, whatever you want to call them, they've now had this intersectional bond in hell with the Palestinian activists. And here in New York City at the Brooklyn Bridge, we've got some pictures we'll throw to you. They had massive protests where they basically shut down the Brooklyn Bridge. So you've got the people actually in Gaza on the beach trying to go about living their lives. You've got the Hamas terrorists, they're a self-described terrorist group. They want to wipe out all the Jews, right? Not just those mean Israelis, all the Jews. They're having a victory parade. They've got people on the beaches. But here, our activists, which is exactly what Rashida Tlaib wanted. She wanted to combine these, quote-unquote oppressions. So now you've got, in some ways, our activists here in New York City at the Brooklyn Bridge, in many ways being more radical than the people on the ground in Gaza. And there is a reason for that that goes beyond just what our awful progressive politicians are saying. The New York Times, this is just so fascinating. You really got to pay attention to this. The New York Times had an opinion piece a couple days ago called The Myth of Coexistence in Israel. And we're going to show you the map here. So this is a map that they showed in this piece that ran in the New York Times. And I've covered this a couple times on the show. But that map is complete fabrication. MSNBC used to show that map and they had to retract it. What you're seeing there on the left when they say all of that is Palestine, the implication is that there was a country known as Palestine. Okay, there wasn't. You guys all know this. There was the British Mandate of Palestine for many years, and then before that there was the Ottoman Empire. And in the place of Palestine, there were no people known as Palestinians. There were Arabs that lived there, and there were Druze and Jews not druids from Spaceballs. There are probably some of them there too. So that's the first map that you're looking at. Then the second map is basically what you're seeing there is the 1947 partition plan. That's what they could have had. They could have had two states. The Jews said, yes, we'll take it. The Arabs said no, then launched a war and lost. Then the third map they show here is complete fabrication because the green in the third map here, on the right, the big chunk on the right, that's Jordan. That was Jordan then. And on the left, as I said before, the Gaza Strip, that was part of Egypt. Then on the fourth map here, they're trying to imply that now Palestine is smaller. That's starting in 1994 when the Israelis for the first time gave Palestinian people, self-identified Palestinian people, an area to control of their own. So the Israelis are the first one that gave it to them. I know this history gets all annoying. And by the way, Bill Maher, I've been a little critical of Bill Maher lately because it's like he's a lefty, but he's not completely insane. And I would say he's good on free speech. But he actually basically repeated a complete show that I did about 2 weeks ago, laying out the history of the area. And I will give credit where it was due, whether his guys watched my show and decided to do it or not. He actually did a nice defense of Israel, and it was nice to hear from a liberal perspective because it's been so bad. But in any event, so the New York Times runs a piece called The Myth of Coexistence in Israel, showing the map that is a complete fabrication. And then finally, because people pushed back, they had to admit it was basically a piece of art. So this is from Honest Reporting. But arguably far worse than the piece itself was the Times' choice of a graphic, one that spreads the tendacious lie that between 1948 and 1967, Palestine shrunk. And this disappearance continues up until the present day. And here's the amazing part. When pressed, the Times deputy opinion editor, Patrick Healy, submitted that the graphic should not be taken literally. This image was used as art atop an opinion essay, and we felt that the art image helped illustrate her arguments in a statement. Yes, a fictitious art did illustrate the written word in the fictitious piece. The New York Times is genuinely evil. It is a place of evil. It is not a place of journalism. And if you think that that's excusable, that they can put up a map to correlate with an opinion piece, and then after, and nobody reads the retractions. That's why I thought this was important to do. Nobody reads the retractions. Afterwards, they say, oh, the picture we put up, that everyone sees the picture and they see the headline. Very few people read the articles or the opinion pieces. It was just art. It didn't have anything to do with an actual map or factualness. Ugh, these people are just ridiculous.